Okay. Can someone?
Yeah, I can take it. Okay, welcome everyone. This is the SIG Instrumentation meeting. Today is December 10th, and this is actually our last SIG Instrumentation meeting for the year. So let's make it a good one. Okay, so the first point we have on the agenda is continue discussing on metrics naming policy. Does anybody remember where we left off?
This is about the whether to use cube prefix for metrics from components other than cube state metrics. And I think I don't remember what we ended up with at the end of 120, but I believe that Clayton added his metric to the scheduler with a cube prefix.
Personally, I think that's okay. I think that's just fine. But
it's inconsistent.
Sorry?
Isn't it inconsistent?
Well, no, it is consistent with cube state metrics.
Right, but internally, because we have like these prescribed thing with the component names and all that stuff. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. I don't have strong enough of an opinion to care about it.
I think the main follow-up is that we should update our instrumentation guidelines such that it's consistent going forward. So I believe actually Elena was the main arguer against using the cube prefix. So
oh, that's true.
And she's not in attendance today.
Let's defer this. Let's defer this then, maybe.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. We can defer it until the next year.
Okay. I also think if someone wants to open a change to the guidelines, that might also be a good place to discuss in the meantime.
I think that's fair. Okay. I guess if someone wants to go ahead and open those changes, they can do that. I would say for now we can go on with our next point. So we've got we don't have anyone tagged on this, but what's going on with stable metrics? Lots of bugs against website for the list being empty.
Wait, say again.
The agenda item says, what's going on with stable metrics? Lots of bugs against website for the list being empty.
Oh, yeah. We need to, but we're frozen. We can't do anything. We're waiting for 121.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair to just comment that here.
Yeah, the plan is to elevate some of these. Like etcd object counts should probably be stable, 121. We could flip that one. I've been talking to some people in API machinery who might be interested in taking up the API server processing time for request latencies. Because right now, all of our request latency metrics include webhook processing time, which makes it un-SLOable because we don't control webhooks.
I think that's kind of silly. Like an SLO is intended to show user experience, right? So if we don't include it, then that kind of defeats the purpose of setting an SLO on that.
You can have an SLO for what your code does, but like if a webhook times out, like, or let's say you create a CRD, another example is let's say you create a CRD and then you create 1 million instances of that CRD and then you do a list. Is it reasonable to expect this 1 million object list to fall under a Kubernetes SLO? And that's usually a no, because the number of objects that you're fetching from a list actually pertain to the latency?
I don't think that's up for Kubernetes to define.
We actually have them defined already. Let me try to dig up the.
I think that kind of thing is up for a provider to define, and if they have a definition like that, then they need to enforce, I don't know, resource quota or whatever.
Let me find the thing. I can find this. Let's move on, and then I'll find the link and then we can circle back.
But in general, I think like request and duration metrics should we should consider to graduate them to stable. I think there are a number of other ones, especially those that are important for setting SLOs. Like I do think should be stable. I'm not sure I entirely agree with etcd object counts. I think request metrics though for sure.
Leaking CRD creations, etcd object counts is like basically the one thing that allows you to detect this. If it's a slow leak, this is the thing that you alert off of. This is like, has to be such a common alert. I would be so surprised if it wasn't.
Going back maybe to original thematic about metric stabilization or like list of stable metrics, I was thinking about this, and like the main problem is that we don't have SIGs like actively having any motivation like to go forward, and it's not our like also job to go run after them and chase them. But there was a new SIG created, like or SIG or group, working group for reliability, and I was interested in talking with maybe Wojtek or overall, like Wojtek T and overall, if they can motivate as part of definition of reliability, motivate introducing observability or some set of stable signals that everyone can depend on to provide reliability and drive the stabilization of metrics through this. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, that was only very barely like scratchy first idea, and maybe discussed it with someone else. Yeah, but.
Yeah, this sounds pretty reasonable to me. Like I do think we need to graduate metrics that are important for SLOs, but I don't think we should create stability for things that are internal implementation details. Like that's kind of like, yeah, that's how I see it. And like etcd objects count, I agree is important, but I don't think that it qualifies as an SLO in itself. So, and anyways, that's how I think about it.
Well, it's not just SLOable, right? It's like, it's what are people using for charts and alerts that we cannot make changes without breaking people, right? Like, and if you think about like the ones that are the most important, like, yes, API request latency is obviously SLO because it's a latency thing. etcd object counts is more Kubernetes specific, but it is not that bad because you have like it's bounded to the number of CRDs in a specific cluster. And you know, for Red Hat, I would think, right, it is very important, especially with OpenShift stuff, right? Like So I'm actually surprised.
So, I mean, maybe someone who actually still works at Red Hat can answer this, but as far as I'm aware, there's no alerting on this metric, but it is being reported to Red Hat so that Red Hat knows about the number of etcd objects in each cluster. Is that still the case?
Yeah. Yes, we expanded it a bit more to include a bit more information we send, but we don't alert on it, no, from what I remember off the top of my head.
Precisely because the like Red Hat mostly follows the rule of like symptom-based alerting, right? And that is 100% a cause, the number of etcd objects. It's very possible that there's an entirely different cause that is causing the API latency to be high, right? And that's why we want to alert on the API latency. Not to say that the alerting on the etcd objects also is wrong. That makes sense, but the combination is really what leads you to the root cause, right? But the point is, the thing that I think needs to be stable is what we do that latency SLO on, and nothing that would be considered a cause-based alert.
Yeah, exactly. I think Matthias can speak about the SLO alert. I think he joined. We use the ones that are defined in the Kubernetes mixin. So we use that in Red Hat as well. So that's the thing that would make sense to be stable from our perspective, at least. But yeah, I agree. I mean, the etcd metrics as well, the object count, but for different reasons, I guess.
You can catch stuff earlier is the nice thing about etcd object counts, because it's a cause. And so like if you notice something getting to an area where you know like you're about to hit some scaling limit. Well,
like that's the thing, right? For us, yeah, sorry. For us, it does, like our clusters can be very varying in size. So what is large number of count of objects is different for each customer, right? So it doesn't make that much sense, right? So for us, the causes are not something we alert on.
So probably for CRDs, it's a little bit less stable, but for built-ins, there are known scalability limits, which you can much more accurately know given your setup.
But if you don't have latency problems, does it matter, right?
Yeah. So I just wanted to tell, like, if you want to define a SLO, you usually want to have some boundaries. Like you cannot have, unlimited, have like infinite boundary about, okay, we support all possible number of etcd objects within this SLO. You give some boundary, like open source scalability envelope, like this number of objects, this type, and this is supported, and this is within SLO. Like it's not part of what we monitor to SLO. It's something that we decide if SLO can cover such cluster or such.
I mean, metrics should be stable even if they're not an SLO input, right? Like, I mean, like the thing that you want to provide is some sort of like API guarantee, and that like SLOs definitely fall. I think that one is indisputable, but I would also think other things do as well, right? Like,
I guess, I mean, we never discussed any rules like that, right? So it is totally up for discussion. What I just worry about is that if we accept something like etcd objects counts, that kind of opens like sort of Pandora's box, and everybody wants all the metrics to be stable all of a sudden. That's just what I worry about, and I agree. Like I guess that's what I've been saying all, the entire time now, that like SLO ones definitely need to be stable. After that, it becomes more vague.
Is there a reason why we wouldn't want something to be stable? It seems like we're essentially just tying our hands with respect to making changes.
well, it's actually not even on us. Technically, it's on component owners.
Yeah, I was using us maybe a little bit more broadly.
Yeah. And so from the API machinery side, I'm saying I am personally planning on making etcd object counts a stable metric because it's important to me, and I will bring it up to API machinery. But I feel like the other people there also think it's important.
I don't disagree with making things stable, but I'm curious how do we have any versioning as well? Like if we in the future want to go to version 2, but still keep the previous metric or something along those lines, or do we just will always keep it once we make it stable and just introduce another metric in case something goes wrong? That makes sense.
You'd have to do, yeah, you would have to do the latter because otherwise you could potentially break ingestion.
That is.
We still have deprecation policies
We do.
for stable metrics, right? So there is a process for replacing metrics over time.
I guess what I first of all, yes, component owners can propose stable metrics, but the process does say that we do need to approve them. But however,
yes.
The things that I'm kind of trying to get at that I don't think can ever be stable, and etcd is like mostly does not fall into this category, are things that are implementation specific, right? Where the implementation might evolve over time in some specific component, and those kinds of metrics I don't think can ever be stable. I realize this is like we're so pretty far in with etcd that probably etcd will always be there, but
no, I mean, there's Kind, there's there's K3s, right? They have the storage adapter with SQLite. So actually, that's a great argument. That's a great argument for before we turn it to stable, we should maybe just have internal storage object count. It's a resource-based object count.
Yeah, I think that I could agree more with that. We have a resource object count. Okay. Instead of an etcd object count.
Okay, I'll make a proposal for that in API machinery, and then we can see about just doing that.
That sounds good.
Great.
Seems like we're aligned. Okay, we have 10 more minutes left, and we've got 2 more topics. Lily, take it away.
What did I write? Yes, we've had in KubeState metrics, we had a bunch of issues for feature requests around metrics we don't necessarily expose. So things that are not one-to-one mapping to the Kubernetes API. And I think since we had so many, and a lot of them do make sense, there is nothing wrong with them. We were thinking of either creating a new sub-project of SIG instrumentation for those. So these would be metrics that do not map to the Kubernetes one-on-one, but they cannot be exposed by Kubernetes natively. So there's a link to the issue in the doc.
Is there
sorry.
Is there a KubeState metrics like working group or something? Like I've
no. Not really. That's why I brought it here. But like the thing is, either we create a new project that is not part of KubeState metrics and is part of like SIG instrumentation that exposes those metrics that we want, or we add it as a new metrics endpoint as part of KubeState metrics, so that you enable via flag. I think that was the main discussion we did on the issue.
What about like some sort of extensibility component that allows people to plug in like their own custom things to generate metrics? That
yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we had those as well, those ideas, and we had them mainly around custom resources, but not sort of around this, because around custom resources makes sense, but around the specific metrics, which are calculations that we know should be there, but we just can't map it correctly. would not be like they're common for every user, right? So it would make sense to be done by us for everyone, essentially. Go ahead, Frederick.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think something along. I'm happy with trying this within kubestate metrics as a separate metrics endpoint. I don't get the impression that we could make use of the optimizations that we did for the normal metrics endpoint that we have on kubestate metrics, because those are pretty specific to the current model. Like aggregations won't work, and that's specifically what this user was requesting. But I think I would be open to trying this and doing this in a sort of generic way, like Hans said, where we essentially write a configuration of these are the aggregations that you would do over these kinds of objects, maybe with a JSON path or something within that object or those objects. I've definitely thought about this before. It's not super easy, but I think that would be the thing that would satisfy most people, and then we can maintain useful configurations for those aggregations as part of kubestate metrics. Well.
Yeah, that I don't necessarily care about the implementation details, but having those common calculations done by either us or whichever component metrics we're exposing, so that the people who have the knowledge how those metrics should be calculated can make those. I'm happy with whether it's in the code or if it's configuration. I'm fine with either.
When you say,
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. When you say aggregation, is this something that can be done at query time that we're just making more convenient, or is this something that we can't get from the current set of information?
Kind of both. Like some aggregations that users are asking for would just cause wild amounts of cardinality that are completely useless unless you're doing exactly this aggregation. So pre-calculating this would save a ton of resources, which would make sense. So yeah, it's kind of both.
You could drop in PromQ to actually just run those things in process, possibly. You can basically just execute them.
I don't know if I would want to do that.
Yeah, it might be a little memory hungry.
That's kind of the point, right? Like it's extremely cheap to do this like within kubestate metrics.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we had a bunch of them that we closed before because like the first paragraph is we stick to the Kubernetes API one-on-one and we do the mapping. So yeah, I think the only thing is I'm happy to have this part of kubestate metrics, but for CRDs, whether we want to put it under this or kubestate metrics, I'm not sure, but we've been getting a lot of requests for CRD metrics.
Is there a place where the requests are listed so people can go through them if they're curious?
Yeah, I'll link it to the doc.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I was asking about the working group was I actually have some interest in extending kubestate metrics. And I was wondering what the forum was for it. And since there's just a lot possibly to discuss, and yeah, I'm
happy to set that up. Currently, it's just opening an issue really and just discussing there between the maintainers. But yeah, we can do that as well. We can have a separate working group. There's definitely a lot of things that we can do, especially if we accept the new aggregated format. I think there's a lot of nice metrics we can make. So yeah, sounds good. We can discuss that.
Yeah, the reason why I was mentioning like configuration for the aggregations is I feel like we're never going to be able to make everyone happy with the chosen aggregations, right? It's almost like doing queries. So that's why I feel like it has to be configurable, but it makes the whole problem a lot more complicated. Yeah. But yeah, like kubestate metrics is a SIG instrumentation subproject, so I don't see why we can't discuss it here actually.
Well, mostly because we have 4 minutes left, and the extension thing would be a lot. It could easily eat up the entire time.
I mean, there's also a kubestate metrics channel on Kubernetes Slack. We can start out there.
Sure. Perfect.
Yeah, sounds good. Do we want the proposal for this to be part of kubestate metrics repo or part of SIG instrumentation?
I would say we can start it within kubestate metrics. If we realize this may outgrow kubestate metrics, I think we can still create a new sub-project. Should we see
no, I meant the proposal, the cap.
Proposal should be in SIG instrumentation enhancements, right?
Yeah.
Sounds good, yeah.
I would say so.
Yeah, I think
the other one
all the
was,
metric servers.
Sorry.
I was just, no, sorry. GBC is the worst, right? Go ahead, sorry.
Yes, no, the other one was just announcement that we graduated the 2.0 to beta now. We have some scale and performance testing left, and after that, we're hopefully gonna release 2.0 as stable. And we already started merging things for the next release.
Very
Awesome.
cool. That's been, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just interested in the scalability test you mentioned. If you define, like, with what we discussed previously about like the scalability the boundaries that I mentioned for envelope, is that this is something that we are following up with, SIG scalability, looking at their official defined envelope for Kubernetes.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead, really.
Please.
Oh no, I just wanted to say that like for us, we just emailed the SIG scalability, and we're writing a new test for this because it's quite unique, I think, to kubestate metrics. But yeah, that's all. Sorry.
Merrick, were you talking about kubestate metrics, or were you talking about the SLO thing?
I mean kubestate metrics, like.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure, because this is something that I was also looking in metric server, just to make sure that we have consistent approach that was discussed with SIG scalability. If you have tests, like, I would be happy. I would also want to maybe look at them, because this is something that I'm looking at.
We haven't actually written them yet, but SIG scalability kind of instructed us where those would go.
Yeah.
Oh,
they sort of gave us a guideline. Yeah.
Is it a written guideline or just?
Yes, it is. It's a part of the mailing list. I can paste it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be perfect.
Okay, looks like we have discussed everything on our agenda for today, and we've got 1 minute left. I guess we can give everybody that 1 minute left. It's over. So time's up. This was our last meeting for the year. So everybody have a wonderful holidays and a happy new year. See you all next year. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Happy New Year.
Bye.
2021.
Finally.
Finally.